Good day, Dr. Shabina. Today I will be presenting my case on how sensory and perceptual processes shape our understanding of reality. This topic is important because what we perceive is not always an accurate reflection of what is actually happening. Sensation and perception are closely related, but actually quite different processes. Sensation refers to how our sensory organs detect physical stimuli, such as light entering the eyes or sound waves entering the ears. Perception, however, is the process where the brain interprets the sensory information and gives it meaning. What is important to understand is that perception is not a direct copy of reality. The brain actively processes and interprets information based on past experiences, expectations, and context. Because of this, two individuals can look at the same situation but perceive it differently. This idea forms the basic of my case study analysis. This study aims to analyze four real life cases to understand how perception works in different situations. It includes both visual and auditory perception and focuses on how errors can happen due to attention, expectation, and environmental factors. To better understand the cases, there are several key psychological concepts involved. First, bottom-up processing refers to perception that starts from sensory input. For example, when we see an object, the brain first processes basic features like color, shape, and movement. On the other hand, top-down processes involves using prior knowledge, expectations, and experiences to interpret sensory information. This means the brain sometimes fills in gaps based on what it expects to see or hear. Attention is also very important. Human cannot process all sensory information at once, so we selectively focus on certain stimuli while ignoring others. Lastly, sensory limitations refer to the fact that our senses are not perfect. Environmental conditions like noise or poor lighting can reduce the accuracy of the information received, which affects perception. In the Ronald Cotton case, the victim confidently identified the suspect during a police lineup. From her perception, she truly believed she had seen the attacker clearly. However, later DNA evidence proved that the person she identified was actually innocent. This situation highlights an important issue. Perception can feel very accurate even when it is wrong. During traumatic events, such as crime, the brain is under stress, which affects attention and memory. The victim may not have processed all the visual details clearly at that moment. This case can be explained using top down processing. The brain may rely on expectations or assumptions when sensory input is unclear or incomplete. For example, the victim may have unconsciously matched certain facial features of the suspect with the mental image of the attacker. Another important factor is memory reconstruction. So, according to psychological research, memory is not stored as a perfect recording. Instead, it reconstructed over time. Each time the memory is recalled, it can be slightly altered, especially when influenced by external factors such as police questioning or repeated exposure to the suspect. This explains why the victim was confident, but still incorrect. It shows that perception and memory are both influenced by cognitive processes, not just raw sensory input. In this case, drivers were involved in an accident due to heavy fog. So they believe they could see clearly, but actually their perception of distance and speed was incorrect. So in this case too of road accidents caused by fog, the issue lies mainly in sensory limitations and visual perception. The human visual system depends on depth cues such as contrast, brightness, and motion to judge distance and speed. When there is heavy fog, these visual cues are reduced. As a result, the brain does not receive complete information. Instead of stopping, the brain tries to interpret the limited information available, which can lead to incorrect judgments, such as thinking another car is further away than it is actually. Selective attention also plays a role. Drivers may focus only on the vehicle directly in front of them and fail to notice other important changes in the environment. This demonstrates that perception is not only limited by the senses but also by how attention is allocated. So, in this case 3, the Pepsi challenge, people preferred Pepsi during blind test, but when they saw the brand, they preferred Coca Cola. This shows that perception can be influenced by branding and expectations. In the Pepsi Challenge, participants showed different preferences depending on whether they knew the brand or not. When the labels were hidden, their judgments were based purely on sensory input, which is an example of bottom up experiencing processing. However, when the brand was revealed, their perception changed. This is where top down processing becomes important. The brain uses prior knowledge such as brand reputation and past experiences to interpret the taste. This also demonstrates the context effect where surrounding information influence perception. Even though the physical taste did not change, the participants' perception of taste changed because of their expectations. This clearly shows that perception is not purely objective, but is shaped by psychological factors. In healthcare, mishearing instructions can lead to serious error. So, in this case, for example, a nurse may hear the wrong drug name or dosage due to noise or stress. In the medical mishearing case, the issue involved auditory perception. Sound waves are processed by the ear and converted into neutral signals. But in a noisy or stressful environment, the clarity of these signals can be reduced. When auditory input is unclear, the brain may rely on top down processing to interpret what was heard. For example, if a nurse expects a certain medication name, they may hear that name even if something slightly different was said. Divided attention also plays a major role. In hospital settings, staff often multitask, which actually reduces their ability to focus fully on one piece of information. According to attention theory, when attention is divided, the accuracy of perception decreases. So, this case highlights that perception errors are not only visual but can also occur in auditory systems, especially in high pressure environment. When we compare all 4 cases, a clear pattern can be seen. So basically, perception is influenced by 3 main factors: expectations, attention, and sensory input. In cases 1 and 3, top down processing had a strong influence, where expectations shaped perception. In case 2, sensory limitation affected visual perception. In case 4, auditory perception was affected by noise and divided attention. So, this shows that perception is not a passive process. Instead, it is an active process where the brain interprets information, sometimes leading to error. These findings are important in real life. In law, it helps explain wrongful convictions. In driving, it shows why accident happened. In healthcare, it highlights the importance of clear communications. In conclusion, this presentation has shown that perception is not always an accurate reflection of reality. While sensation provides the raw information, perception involves interpretation, which can be influenced by expectations, attention, and environmental factors. The case discussed demonstrates that error in perception can have serious real life consequences, such as wrongful conviction, accidents, and medical errors. Understanding how perception works allow individuals to become more aware of their own limitations and encourage more careful decision making in real life situations. I would like to end this presentation with a simple thought. Perception shapes reality, but it doesn't always reflect it. Thank you for watching.